Welcome, I'm Rogers Anderson. As we survey our county again today, we have a special edition of this. We have Jay Sheridan with Sheridan Public Relations Company. We're going to be talking about the fair. Thanks for being with us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So for the last several years, you've been involved in helping to promote the fair and helping us with a lot of behind the scenes, getting the information out and digesting all of that data that we get. But we do want to talk about it. We had a very good fair. 2019 was a very good fair. But let's talk a little bit about you. Where are you from? I know you live here in the county, and you recently bought some property just across the line. But tell us a little bit about how did you get started. If somebody's watching the show, how do they tell their children or grandchildren to get involved in public relations, or maybe you'd steer them the other way?
Well, it's a rewarding thing to be a part of events like this, certainly, and make a living from it. The short version, I guess, is I was born in California. My father was an entertainer, was coming to Nashville to make an album, planning on coming. Died tragically while I was in the womb, and my mother came on when I was 10 months old. She was planning on attending O'More, and did that. And so started in Franklin and kind of grew up with a foot in Nashville and a foot in Franklin. She had a shop on Main Street in the 80s, and I went to
And what was the name of her shop?
J. Haynes and Company. She's an interior designer, and it was an accessories kind of shop, and so yeah, I went to Ole Miss and got a journalism degree. I met my wife there. Came back here. Bought a house in Franklin, and actually worked in downtown Nashville for the first several years at a big firm, and then took a detour through healthcare technology before the recession, and then went out on my own actually 10 years ago this year. So I'm a writer at the end of the day, and just kind of ended up on this side of the business.
The 2019 Williamson County Fair, 15th year that we've had, from your perspective, from my perspective, it was good. Even battling 4 days of inclement weather, that was the first time that we've had to handle that many consistent days of rain and lightning and adverse conditions, and there is nothing you can do, Jay, just nothing. But from your perspective, as you were around the fairgrounds and helping to promote, set up, and a lot of your work goes on certainly before the fair doors ever open up, what did you see?
I thought it was fantastic on a number of levels. It just keeps getting better every year. There's always going to be something. It could have been a run of drought and 100 degrees, and we would have had a similar set of issues to deal with. The neat thing, I guess, was, before the fair, we were worried about, and certainly during the fair, worried about all the public safety elements with some of the stuff that was going on around the country. And so, we had spent a lot of time talking to EMA and the sheriff's office about...
Now, we can't use initials on this show.
the Emergency Management Agency, Director Horton and Chief Deputy Elrod, and just how we prepare for those things. Obviously, the board is focused on that, and knew that they had implemented this texting system, and that they had a robust apparatus watching weather and being able to now send out alerts, and so what a perfect way to demonstrate that system. On several nights, we would get these alerts that there was lightning within 20 miles and that there was lightning within 8 miles, and that folks should consider, the rides were suspended and folks should consider going inside, and it worked. And then they would go inside and experience the 4-H village, and it was packed, and half hour, 45 minutes later, it would stop, and the lightning would stop, and the midway would reopen, and they'd go back outside, and it just worked. So that was nice to see.
You brought up a topic when the first fair was here. It was 15 years ago. When you think back to that period of time, you planned by the emergency management folks. You planned that fair a lot differently, and being around that whole time, I can tell you the planning was more from a law enforcement side, more from a health side, the heat that may occur. Now, you had people there with the emergency management and their different volunteer fire departments. But a lot of that was exercise, and I don't mean the physical, touch your toes and bend over, but it was trying out different systems. And in those early days, we kind of take it for granted now, but it's getting the county side and the city side, getting our volunteer men and women that participate to commingle, see if the radios communicated with each other. We found out they didn't. It was very similar to what happened, not to the same degree, but 9/11, that the different agencies would do bids on their radio systems and all the equipment they use, and one may buy one brand, need to buy another brand, and you come to find out they don't communicate unless you just do like your typical telephone. 15 years, telephones have come a long way. We didn't have texting to any degree 15 years ago, and the technology that's available for us today, what you're talking about. In those early days in emergency management, law enforcement, it was a different model that we used, in that it was more or less for accreditation and getting us comfortable in the event that something might seriously happen. Today, the way we run our fair is really an effort on public safety's part to be prepared for the most adverse condition that you'd have. Was certainly 200 to 225, 250,000 people that may be in an event at one time. How do you evacuate? What do you do if there was a tornado, et cetera, et cetera? That's all going behind. It's all behind the scenes to be sure that's pulled off, and that's paramount that we do it.
Mm-hmm. We had one night, I know you remember, when it wasn't supposed to rain, and we had a system blow through with 70-mile-an-hour winds, and that could have, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, that might have popped up and caught us by surprise and caused a lot more damage, potentially to people. And because of these systems and the way that we plan and the way that they execute their plans and get people to safety, I think the worst thing that happened was some signs blew over.
Our director, Bill Jorgensen, of Public Safety, and Todd Horton, Emergency Management Director, did an outstanding job. And all the support people, it takes a lot of people to give out there. And talking about people, you move right into the fair. The fair is an impossible thing to do without the support of the sponsorships and the vendors that we have, because it takes money to put on a fair. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of what acts are going to be here. But the catalyst that pulls the fair together are the volunteers. No
Absolutely.
question about it. And about 2,200 people participated in some degree, maybe 3 hours here, or somebody would do a full stretch all-day run. And we had several people that were out there almost every day.
Yeah, it's incredible. And a wonderful group of people. There's such camaraderie among the chairs and the board. You hate to focus on anything negative, if you will, but if there's a threat to the fair, it's maintaining that volunteer base, and we've got to continue to build it and keep that base going. It's a whole bunch of people to recruit every year.
It is, and thank goodness we do have a very philanthropical county, which really trickles down to public service. As you look around the fair, it's a clean fair. It's a fair that oftentimes when people are being transported back and forth, we kind of introduced that model when the fair first came open about using the golf carts to take you to your car and pick you up if you so desired. And so riding those carts, which are provided for our citizens and the fairgoers, you hear a lot of comments. you see a lot of children. The negative from my side, I look at all the children going to the fair. I got to build more schools.
Right.
I am thankful that not everyone attending there is from Williamson County. We have all counties and some states represented, but it is amazing the number of people that. Let's talk a little bit about the numbers and how do we get the message out that there'll be a fair. I mean, that's your job. Your role is from the, not just publicity, but it's coordinating all these activities with the TV, the radio, the newspapers, and other means of channels. And what's most effective? I mean, to the average viewer, they may see it 1 or 2 times here on local station, WAKM, or one of the other stations. I know we had, what was it, Mix 92.9. Mix 92.9. Yeah, you know.
Hippie radio.
It's kind of a hippie radio. We've got a broad spectrum of people. How do you determine?
Yeah, so it's multi-pronged. I mean, there's so much going on that our objective is to reach people with information multiple times in the lead up and certainly during the fair. I mean, it's almost an impulse decision. I mean, Jeannie Hammondtree at Chick-fil-A, you know, is willing to put bags and, I mean, brochures in drive-through bags and those kinds of things. But we've gone, radio's big, and I'll say, you know, WAKM bends over backwards. I mean, they have us on the hometown radio show every morning. They do live remotes out there. They run heavy ad spots and just go above and beyond. And so do people like Derby and Cassie at the Williamson Herald. I mean, Carol Robinson, their reporter, was there every night for 9 days and focuses in on, you know, a lot of things that matter, including agriculture and the kids and that kind of stuff that we're focused on preserving and enhancing. But a lot of digital. So, you know, if there's an evolution from our standpoint, it's probably less print and more digital for a couple of reasons. 1, it's less expensive. 2, we can track it. 3, we can target it. So take social media, for instance. We can, you know, say, hey, we want to reach parents in Rutherford County, and we can get pretty specific on the way we attach demographics and then go put an ad in their Facebook feed. So certainly, you know, more digital, and we've pressed the envelope as much as we could in terms of reaching beyond Williamson County, certainly the donut counties.
Let me interrupt you on that. How far out are you trying to go to draw people into the fair, to the Williamson County Fair?
I would say within primarily the 9-county, you know, the donut. I guess we're part of the donut, but you know, the Nashville MSA, out to Sumner, out to Rutherford, out to Dixon. We'd like to go further, but the reality is, on a lot of these nights, we don't have anywhere to put anybody else. You know, things like the Tennessee Magazine and gosh, we had a Food Network shoot this year for a popular show.
Let's talk about that. That was interesting to me. That's the first time we've done that.
Right, and we can't say exactly what it is, but you know, we work with them on a lot of things, but sometimes opportunities like that just show up, and we have to evaluate them and determine whether it's the right thing, whether it's family friendly, whether they're going to cause a problem being out there. And they were phenomenal, but one thing that they kept remarking on is how clean it is and how family friendly and how happy. I mean, even the staff, the ride operators, the volunteers, they said it felt like Disney, you know, on that level, as opposed to some, you know, parking lot carnival somewhere. And that makes you feel good.
I think when if for people that are watching this show that have never been, it's hard to explain to you how clean it is for a fair. For people that go, it's almost paramount because of the different people involved that are picking up those trash bins all throughout the day, and certainly at night we're cleaning up with a sweeper. But I also like to think that our fair, they may be a few boys and girls, men and women that slip in an alcohol beverage, but we don't sell them on the
Right.
premises. And the board has said very strong that if we can't make the fair stand on its own 2 feet without the sale of alcohol, because nobody's opposed to the sale of alcohol, but it's not at this particular event.
Nobody misses it either.
Nobody
I don't
misses
think,
it.
because you're put into a mindset, when you get there, that this is all about families and kids and having fun, and I just don't know how much having a beer is going to add to that. And then on you just don't see people eating a funnel cake and throwing the plate on the ground like you do in a lot of places. I would say that's a mindset too. They don't see trash everywhere, so they don't intuitively think it's appropriate to throw it on the ground.
So in the early days, the board was put together and came up with a mission statement. And of course, over the years, we've refined it, put a few little adverbs and adjectives in. But basically, it's the same mission. It's talking about keeping forefront of ag. Now, this county is still very large in agriculture. A lot of people may not realize that. But the ag we're talking about is more from the basic elementary, because we have so many people moving in that do not know how a plant grows or what do you do, or just seeing the mama pig have her litter, and viewing and watching and observing that's probably the little ones farming and the mama pig are probably some of our top 2 events that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are attracted to it. They're interested by it. They just don't know. And I mean, that includes an awful lot of suburban folks. It's not just the Californians coming in. But everybody's interested in nature. And it may be from an agricultural standpoint. We've seen the way chickens and other things have grown in popularity. And it could be just an open space, a green space or an environmental sort of focus. But all that stuff works together. I mean, the farmers are doing as much for the environment as anybody.
This year they had some sheepdog out there herding sheep, and they literally let the sheep get out of the pen on purpose.
Yeah.
And they kind of filtered in the audience all around that area down there, and the sheep were. And people were stopping and hollering. The sheep got loose. The dogs were just laying around, and the lady or the man, there was one of each, giving commands to these dogs, and they would simply blow a little whistle or say a word or just whistle with their mouth. Those dogs around those sheep, put them back in the pen. I've never seen anything like that.
Well, I have a Labrador that's highly trained for duck hunting purposes, and I tell people she's a dog of a lifetime, and I didn't do it. She just has it genetically. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen, and that's the connection with people and animals, and I think that feeds into that same. It's the same thing with agriculture. Humans and animals have a symbiotic relationship that has gone on for tens of thousands of years, and we need each other to make the world go round.
Jay, let's kind of shift emphasis a little bit, and let's just talk about fairs in general. There are 95 counties across the state of Tennessee. Almost every county has a fair. I think there's some 78 to 80 fairs. There's a few counties that don't have fairs. But as we noticed out there, Wilson County Fair, the show is being taped to be shown at a later date, but actually it's starting today. And those folks, there was a busload of them that came in, about 20 some of them came in to observe our fair. Wilson County's standards, size, longevity are well recognized throughout the United States.
Sure.
Probably one of the top 10 fairs now. Iowa State Fair and San Antonio, Texas, and Minnesota. I mean, it's so large that all the candidates running for the president of the United States are going to be at those fairs. Yeah. We haven't quite hit that number, and I don't know that we ever will. Certainly not on just the 95 acres that we've got there. But when you look at the family that every community has is made up of volunteers has made up of board members that are very public servant in mind in their community. And we are all willing to share. We're all willing to say, come to our fair, pick up another idea, take it back to your fair. It's kind of like SEC football for you. It'd be Ole Miss. For me, it'd be Tennessee. So long as they're in the SEC, we can get along. When they play each other, we're going to pick teams.
Except for Alabama. They're an exception. And I would suggest Mississippi State. But no, even back to the first years, I mean, going through some of the history that we've done, I mean, Wilson County opened up their books to you, right, in the first years, and said, here's how you do it.
Playbook and their financial side.
Yeah, that says a lot about their character and how much they valued, fairs and communities, and didn't see it as competition, saw it as an addition for the people of Middle Tennessee.
Which is different, is where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I mean, in the public relations world you live in, that's very proprietary information, and you keep that close. Now, you may work with a good friend or help somebody out over here, but as a general rule, you're competing for business. Fairs compete for business, but yet it's open door.
Yeah.
And in the local paper here, they'll have the fair advertised in a half a dozen different areas. And there are people that go to various fairs. Some data has been put out on that the average person that goes to attend a fair, they'll go to a couple of fairs a year. Huh. Which is interesting to me, that it's not. I know a lot of our board members will go to Wilson County Fair. They'll go down to I'm forgetting the name of it, down right on the border of Fayetteville, down in Fayette County.
Yeah.
And some will go out into their local communities. I know Brenda Hyden, for an example, got a lot of family presence over in the Winchester area. She'll go to that fair.
Yeah.
And it's a much smaller fair. Most fairs are not 9 days. The big ones are all 9 and 10 and beyond. Smaller fairs are 3 to 5 days. And if they get a series of bad weather for 2 or 3 nights, their fare is just absolutely under. Then they have to, it's constant worry.
Right. And there's an awful lot of infrastructure and front-end cost in that.
Absolutely.
I mean, people are walking up and buying tickets. I mean, we've incentivized people to buy ticket packages online for several reasons. It streamlines the gates, and it just streamlines the whole process. But yeah, I mean, if you got a 3-day event and it rains for 3 days and you're expecting people to show up and buy tickets, then you got a problem.
Let's talk about, we just got about 5 minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about what the fair gives back to the community. Let me touch on a few things, and I'll let you kind of talk on GraceWorks. The fair is actually writing a check to Centennial Band Boosters, to Page. I think there's band boosters also. Centennial does all of our parking for us. Page does our ticket taking. Ravenwood has a presence out there through Jimmy Drew, who is one of the top entertainment areas in the county. I mean, just a classy gentleman. Him and
his whole team is just a joy.
Yeah, they're joy. And they do the drug testing and the alcohol.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they're just. It's an elevation above just
they do it right.
Yeah, it's a midway, and it's an entertainment family. But on one particular night, started by Terry and Diane a few years ago, we need to be looking at giving back to our community. What can we do? The avenue we chose was GraceWorks. Take it over.
Yeah, so there's the GraceWorks piece. So it's Pay It Forward night, and essentially people can bring canned goods or items from the critical needs list. GraceWorks serves the underserved in our area, and most people bring food, bring canned goods, and so we put an emphasis on that over the last 3 or 4 years, and really trying to grow it. And last year we were so thrilled, we were up 48%. This year we were up another 29%. So that translates to over 14,000 pounds of food. I think most people don't realize, but those those food banks struggle, with being able to address the need just on an ongoing basis. So they're very thankful for that. The other piece of it is the livestock auction and the way that the 4-H kids are raising livestock, and then we have folks the last couple of years who have stepped up and bought a steer, for instance, and then turned around and donated it to the rescue mission. So, you may have 1,000 pounds of meat going to the rescue mission. The kids are getting money to be able to go to college, and everybody wins.
That's an area for people who are not familiar. It's a Rockwell setting in the way that the arrangement is, where you got the fenced area and men and women, businesses are bidding on these steers, lambs, sheep, et cetera, whatever the animal is of choice. And it's a huge contribution, and it's changed its complexion. In the early days, they had their separate sale away from, and it wasn't near as successful as being able to promote. Even the governor was down here at this.
It's an illustration of what it's all about. It's about community, and it's about our agricultural history, and I would say present and future.
Jay, we got a couple of minutes left. I want to give you an opportunity to say something. Maybe I've not had the wisdom to think what's on your mind that you might want to pay special attention to during this special segment that we're doing.
Well, the volunteer piece is on my mind. I think that's going to be our big focus is building that next generation of volunteer leaders for the fair. We're looking for ways to plug people in on a year-round basis and tell the stories. And so there's so many great aspects to it. Yeah. And if people have ideas, we'd love to be in touch with them.
Well, and I do agree with you. The volunteers, the backbone of what pulls the fair together. When you figure you only got a couple of people you're paying, one's your, the person that helps solicit, works on the commission for the vendors and for the sponsorships, mm-hmm. and the other one is Terry, who does an outstanding job. Really does more than probably what your secretary would be asked to do. But as I look at the fair, the volunteers are the key to it. And we change things. Nothing's the same. We don't use the arena anymore the way we used to, nor any of the other rights. Things change, and we need to change. We need to be fresh and crisp about every 2 to 3 years. And we need to remember, always, that our job is to provide entertainment for fun for about 2 to 2.5 hours. Jay Sheridan's expert in this area of public relations. I'm Roger Sanderson. Jay, thanks for being with us today. We'll see you around the county on the next show. Have a good day.